Yesterday, I talked about how Michigan should respond to the notice of allegations from the NCAA that they, I guess, are expecting to receive sometime this week. That's the reports, is that Michigan expects to get that information from the NCAA. And there's already there's a flurry of, hey, they're going to get bowl bans or they're going to get postseason bans, and it's happened 167 times, and 167 times wins have been vacated along with it. And the other side is saying Michigan feels like they don't have to respond or fight the notice of allegations because there's not really a whole lot in the notice of allegations, and that the NCAA doesn't have a case against them. And I had talked about how my thought process was, if I'm Michigan, you just say, like, I'm not participating in this. I'm not going to help you at all. And there were a couple of comments on that video and that basically said I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. And I want to clarify that, like, basically it was, the investigation's over. What are you talking about? How do you not know what's going on? I didn't use 100% precise language, and that's on me. Like, I can wear that criticism. But the idea that the notice of allegations comes in and, like, that's it, that's what happens, that's the punishment, that's not what happens. And so I want to talk about, like, what happens after you get the notice of allegations, right? The NCAA comes in, says, we're going to conduct our investigation. And then it's essentially like, if you were going to put it in, like, legal terms, Michigan is about to be charged. Michigan is about to find out what it has been charged with from the NCAA. That, now, in the legal process, you don't get charged with something and then it's like, okay, so here's your charges, now we're sentencing you. That's not what happens. So Michigan, when they get their notice of allegations, whether that's this week, next week, whatever, the report, the reason that we're talking about this is the reports are Michigan is preparing to receive it this week. When you get that notice of allegations, you have 90 days, which feels like, when you hear 90 days, is like, okay, yeah. Like, the presidential election, it happens in 99 days, something like that. So, like, that's a long time. You have until November to respond to that notice of allegations whenever Michigan gets it. So the idea that this is almost over is not real or genuine or rational. We are, like, in the early stages, unless Michigan decides to settle out of court or just say, yep, sounds good, when the NCAA notice of allegations. But depending on the scenario, depending on the situation, rarely is it just like, yes, yep, sounds good, you got it 100% completely right, we're signing on the dotted line. That's just generally not how it goes. So Michigan's about to be charged with what they're going to be charged with. They have 90 days to respond. They have 90 days to put together, they're like, hey, here's what you got wrong. And then the process, it doesn't start over again, but the NCAA says, all right, well, let's look over the evidence. Let's talk about it. Let's see if there's new evidence. If Michigan makes a claim, the investigation is complete and over with, yes. But the process of finding out whether they're guilty or not guilty, or whether they are falsely charged or innocent, or whatever words you want to use there, we're just getting started with that. And that is where I failed to be precise in my language. And I think precise language is important. It's, like, to sidebar for just, like, we throw the term, like, racist around a lot. That's a really big accusation to throw at somebody. So I think it should be reserved for situations where, beyond a reasonable doubt, somebody is a racist, not just anybody that I dislike is this. It's the same, like, in a political world. I'm really turned off by the idea that anything I don't like, woke. Anything I dislike, that person is literally Hitler. Like, precise language matters to me is the point I'm trying to make. And I failed in that regard on Tuesday. Yes, the investigation is closed, but the evidence gathering is not. The evidence presentations are not. Michigan can still sit down and hire whatever the college sports version of Johnny Cochran is to defend themselves to the NCAA. Now, the problem with that is you don't get to see that on, like national TV. You don't get to pull up YouTube and see the highlights from the Michigan versus NCAA trial that I think people would be interested in. Would you sit down and watch that like you watched, the highlights of the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp case or the Casey Anthony murder trial? I would. Yeah, I would sit down and watch the NCAA lawyers make their case and see Michigan try to make their case for why the NCAA is full of poppycock. I absolutely would watch that, but nobody probably wins in that organization. Like, neither side wins when you're like, yeah, well, like that. It's probably not all that riveting television, but I'd give it a go. I'd watch it, and I'd probably find some interesting tidbits out of it. If the options were like, okay, you can watch First Take and you can watch Stephen A. Smith bitch about something he doesn't really know what he's talking about, or we're going to televise the NCAA versus Michigan in a notice of allegations and like, here's where a committee on infractions committee meeting. Is that as interesting as what's on C-SPAN? Probably. I'd give it a go. And I hope it would be covered as if it was, like a normal trial of the century coverage. I would be interested in that. But I don't think you're ever going to get that, so you don't have to worry about it. But that's where we are right now, is the Michigan is about to find out what it's been charged with. And then not only that, they essentially have 3 months to put together their most interesting PowerPoint presentation to say, this is what you got wrong. This is balderdash. This is what we have issues with. Now, whether or not they take the approach of, you got this wrong and defend themselves, was the point of my conversation, was yes, Michigan can say, this is unfair, this is ridiculous, you got this wrong, you don't have the evidence to tie us, the athletic department, the football program, to Connor Stallions. Do we wholly admit that Connor Stallions acted inappropriately, unethically, whatever the case may be? Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that Central Michigan's quarterback coach reportedly got fired the day fall camp starts, the day that the NCAA, or the week that reports start coming out that the NCAA is going to drop notice of allegations on Michigan, after that quarterback coach had worked for Jim Harbaugh for 4 years, and then Connor Stallions was reporting on Central Michigan's sidelines. I don't think all of that stuff is a coincidence. So I know that there are ardent Michigan supporters who are like, nope, nobody's ever proven we've done anything wrong. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. It's not the FBI's out to get you and the Big Ten's out to get you and the NCAA's out to get you. It's just like when everybody is out to get you, eventually you got to look at the common denominator. So the idea that Michigan has done nothing wrong is not true either. So somewhere between the NCAA's argument of this is what happened and Michigan's argument of this is actually what happened is probably the truth, is probably somewhere in the middle. And we are yet to find that. And there's still a process in which we have to get to finding that stuff out. That was my greater point. I didn't do a great job of making it on Tuesday, so that is why I'm revisiting it today. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. Here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. It helps us get in front of more college football fans. And more college football fans is always a great thing. See you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.